Sometimes I feel it's almost embarrassing to be a gamer nowadays. I'm not talking about the community, that's a discussion for a different day. What I am talking about is that sometimes it's just straight up embarrassing to look forwards to playing new games coming out. The industry has gotten so big that disappointing release after disappointing release just continues to be pushed out, drowning out what is actually well made and fun. Furthermore, it's always more entertaining for the masses to absolutely shit on a product, like the Gollum game, Redfall, or Forspoken, because it's an opportunity to let out frustrations with products where the quality is more polarizing than obvious. People aren't in the wrong for their criticism or anything, but it does inadvertently shift the attention towards those stinky releases. Things seem even more pointless when the worst games still cost a boatload of money as well. Sometimes I ask myself, what even is the point? But then I remember that Super Mario Odyssey exists. Super Mario Odyssey is the most efficient game in terms of fun I have ever played. There's more excitement per meter here than most games will stretch over a whole kilometer. If the entire game was just empty platforming, the game would still be incredible. But, as a little treat, they added collectibles and story to actually back all that movement up. There's so much depth in how you want to get around that exploration is no longer about getting from point A to point B anymore. It's about having the most fun while doing it. The first real level, the Cascade Kingdom, illustrates this beautifully. When going up to fight the boss, there has to be about a million ways just to reach that area alone. You can ride this telephone pole up and go past the chain chomps, you can break these blocks as the dinosaur, go across the bridge, enter the 2D pipe to climb up the wall and pop up the other side, or get to the same spot by going across the cloud platforms and then skip the entire 2D section by getting real fancy on the dinosaur bones here. You can basically skip the whole level if you're insanely good at the game. Notice how I'm not using my own footage, because I am not insanely good at the game. You can really see how great Odyssey is in that despite the absolute insane creativity at display in the Cascade Kingdom, it's actually more of a tutorial stage. If this whole game was one fantastic meal, you haven't tasted shit yet, because the game is always cooking up something wonderful for you around the corner. Literally. Just tell me, Nintendo, who is going to eat this much soup? This is a fucking absurdly large pot of soup. Who is going to eat all this? Obviously not this guy, he's a fucking fork. Odyssey is careful to never limit the player by pushing an idea too far, and most choices in the game gratify the player's freedom rather than oppress it. Even in these isolated, linear challenges, the developers made sure to reward players who tug at the confines of gaming convention. There are always two moons in these areas, one that's just right at the end, and another that requires a little more experimentation, allowing for flexibility even outside the broad open levels. Giving players agency is always a slippery slope, and it can go poorly if the scale is off balance in either direction. A game that's just too open-ended will make the player lose their sense of direction, and a game that's too firm will feel imposing and unsatisfactory. A very minor gripe I have with Mario Odyssey is that the game falters a bit in terms of its freedom regarding structure. When talking with a couple friends about Mario Odyssey, one of my friends was like, "Oh yeah, I really enjoyed what I played, but it was really short, like only about 10 hours. And then I get a little confused. I have put almost 250 hours into this game, and I've only beaten it about 4 times. How can it have taken someone just 10 hours to complete such a dense game?" And then I remember, out of 880 different moons, you actually only need 124 to complete the game. In order to move on from each kingdom, you have to collect a certain amount of moons, and what they were doing was literally just moving on as soon as they possibly could. It's hard to blame them when the game is just so exciting that you constantly want to see the next big spectacle. And sadly, in the pursuit of player freedom, Mario Odyssey accidentally ended up pushing them away from exploring the game's amazing world. Creating larger moon requirements to travel even just as a separate mode, or having immediate rewards for collecting rather than just the late game bonuses could have greatly helped players take their time and get more moons. It's not a problem for me, who always 100%s the game every time I play it, or for the speedy players who want to zip through the game, but for the middle ground who want a fulfilling and well-paced experience, things just could have been done slightly differently. It is interesting though, how such an incredible game is held back pretty much only by how it fails to help some players who just want to experience it more. That and some weird motion control implementation. But the game just gets so many things damn near perfect. The cap, Mario Odyssey's brand new mechanic, is so enjoyable to toy around with. Miyamoto, the most genius man in gaming who has never been misquoted ever, took to his style of multi-use mechanics with Mario's hat throw. The cap is used to interact with objects around you, help you with platforming, and also capture many different creatures in the wide variety of environments you'll explore. All of the capturable creatures are always right in a perfect spot where they would be useful, just waddling around, so you never really have to seek them out. Captures really create some exciting traversal and puzzles, adding more depth in Odyssey's mission of making movement exciting. Mario is just so incredibly nimble, it's actually crazy. Diving, ground pound jumping, the spin move, backflips, crouches, rolling, and long jumping have all been staples of Mario's mobility for a while. But when adding the cap into the mix, it creates some really amazing combinations. You can effectively do a double jump in midair by diving onto your hat. You can do a circle throw and then roll to collect a bunch of coins. Throw your hat up and ground pound jump into it for some extra verticality when you don't have a lot of room. The only issue is that I feel like a dumbass shaking my controller around like a lunatic.
PlayStation.
It is another small gripe, but the motion controls could have easily been mapped to buttons, especially when considering that so many moves are tied to multiple inputs, and the fact that it's even more awkward to shake your entire system in handheld mode. There are ways to do the spin throw and down throw without motion, but there isn't any for the up throw, and there could have been a better way to handle this. Both the bumpers are used for centering the camera, so dedicate one of them to a cappy adjustment mode, and then make it so that each of the two buttons do a different throw. When the button's turned off, both of them can still be a normal throw. As for the spin throw, the input for doing it isn't that terrible, so it can stay. When Mario Odyssey has just so many victories though, it's hard to stay frustrated. It's a challenge for me to not have fun even just looking around these amazing locations. You go from fighting Bowser up in the clouds to crashing down on a lush, primeval poison swamp with birds who steal your hat, only to repair your ship and land in New York City, but Donkey Kong themed.
Time to go do that work. Say hi, Burn. There we go, buddy.
Even in the smaller and less interesting areas, there is still a robust amount of content, and the largest levels are so dense that their scale is very much warranted. Empty space just doesn't exist in Mario Odyssey, because even in the seemingly mundane corners, there will be a little treat waiting for you. All of this builds to Mario Odyssey's theme of travel. Mario is traversing the globe, taking in all it has to offer while still chasing after Bowser to stop his wedding. You travel to a huge carbonated lake that is getting sucked up by a giant octopus with a straw.
You could say I'm in love with the cocoa.
A vast desert that got frozen over, and even Balls Creek, Nova Scotia. I think Mario just stopped there for the novelty. Travel is such an open-ended theme that the possibilities for destinations seems absolutely endless. Despite its comprehensive list of levels, there's just so much that Mario Odyssey doesn't tap into that a sequel was simply inevitable. Right? It has been almost 6 whole years since Mario Odyssey's release, and there's still not even a twinkle in Miyamoto's eye that could hint us towards what is coming next. There was Luigi's Balloon World, which I had a lot of fun with, but that was puny compared to the scale of a full sequel. Something to consider is that there was only a 3-year gap between Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Galaxy 2, because it was using the same assets and not many systems and mechanics had to be reworked. All they had to do was just create more Mario Galaxy. So, considering that it has almost been double that amount of time, and there's been no announcement at all, makes a sequel seem even less likely. Breath of the Wild sequel, Tears of the Kingdom, took 6 years to make and release. But notice that last word I said there. Release. The game was announced in 2019 and is out now. You can go ahead and play it, and you don't have to speculate and wonder what it's like because it's already a finished product. Tears of the Kingdom also had a reason to take that long, reworking the same map of Hyrule to be fun to explore again. But all Mario Odyssey 2 had to do was create more levels. This shit could have been banged out in the same amount of time that the Galaxy games took to make a sequel. Obviously, something bigger is going on here. We have two options for what could be happening behind the scenes. One is that Nintendo is just really taking their time with the game. This one seems less likely because it would either mean that the sequel is so big and different that it could warrant a new title, or that they're just taking way too many bathroom breaks and it's a slow-moving process. I think that Charles Martinet stepping down as the voice of Mario could have slowed down development and made things less consistent, which would bring us to the second option, which is a completely brand new 3D Mario game. With lots of factors possibly having influence, like Martinet's retirement creating inconsistencies between the sequel and the original, the game just increasing in scale, or the possibility of release on a new console, a brand new game might be in order. The thing is that if a new game is made, we likely won't get Mario Odyssey 2. Nintendo would be free to do whatever they want, but that would mean that Odyssey is left behind. Super Mario Odyssey is my favorite game on the Switch, right next to Breath of the Wild. Kingdom after kingdom in this game just absolutely stuns me with how damn fun they are. Even once the game seems like it's winding down, it will introduce you to the lengthiest and yet most excitement-concentrated post-game of any Mario ever made, allowing you to go back and get more familiar with your favorite areas, and unlock whole new surprises at the end of the journey. I have poured so many hours into the game, and replayed it so many times, and every time I wish I could experience it again for the first time, just to feel that fresh sense of delight again. And a sequel would really allow for that to happen. Mario is absolutely the most consistent game franchise ever created, and even when it falters, it ends up creating a memorable product. This level of insane creativity is hard to emulate, so I can only hope that Nintendo puts out a game, whether it be a sequel or a new entry, that can rival the wonder of Odyssey. With this really cool looking new 2D Mario coming out, along with seemingly infinite possibilities for what 3D Mario can accomplish, the future looks bright no matter where Mario chooses to travel next. You know, there's such a thing as a big pot of soup, and then there's this Nintendo. Okay, this is just absurd. I can't even begin to imagine a pot of soup bigger than this. Holy fucking shit.
Macaroni alla molinese.